Sex and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed.
Indeed. Good morning to you all. Good morning. It's a sort of learning and development welcome. Try it again, rock and roll. Good morning! Good morning! You know about creativity? Come on, we are in a seat of learning. We're in the Open University, which I work for, so somebody must know the answer to that question. Well, let's start you off. Let's think about music and creativity to start with. You don't need to be a musician or have any notion of scales to get this. It's a riff. Anyone can help me with that? A pattern, yes, and? Anyone study Latin at school? Did I hear the word ostinato coming from the back? You, sir. Did you say ostinato? You did, didn't you? What does that mean? Anyone else help us with that? Did I hear anyone say a repeated chord progression, pattern, refrain, or melodic figure? Yes, of course. This, of course, is the dictionary definition of riffology, which actually isn't in a dictionary. It might be on Wikipedia now. And this is a game called Name That Riff, just to get us into the mood. If anyone actually says, I can play a better riff than that, then you can come up and play one. Smells like team spirit, Sarah. Thank you. Sing. Mama just killed a man. How old is that song? 1976. Any advance or down, up, down? It's 35 years or so old, and you know all the words still. And this works all over the world, even with people who can't speak much English. They do know the words of Bohemian Rhapsody. You ask them what's their company mission statement, they can't even begin. Something about learning and rhyming and music, something that's more important to explore than we have time this morning. But we know Bohemian Rhapsody, and excuse me if you can recite your company mission statement in rhyming couplets, but generally speaking, something about business doesn't seem to have the same stickiness, does it? And probably that was stolen from... Purple Rain. Anyone seen Prince? Yeah. Good? Amazing. How many times? Twice. That... Really? The next thing is to point out the 12 notes, but you can make an awful lot of music out of those 12 intervals. I've noticed over years of playing with wannabe rock stars like John Otway and the woman that sang on Meatloaf's hit, that in fact there are only so many combinations of these notes you can make, but you can get a lot of creativity out of just the combination of 12 notes. And wannabe, only I've noticed this, is obviously derived from the Deep Purple classic Smoke on the Water. Who's got any male children that play guitars in their bedrooms? Have they tried to play that song? Yeah. Perfect. You can actually get money off guitars if you go into a shop and say you won't play that song. And I did get £100 off this one for promising not to play Stairway to Heaven or Smoke on the Water, these sort of paradigm classic rock riffs. That's just 4 notes. It has the devil's interval in it. Any heavy metal fans here? Yeah, so, you know, if you want to sort of summon up the devil, you just sort of go... and the devil arrives. Smoke on the Water. By the way, Richie Blackmore, who wrote this, was heavily criticised because he said, it's just 4 notes. It's... And he said, well, no one had a go at Beethoven when he come up with... It's just 4 notes. Wannabe if we have to go through that. That's 5 notes. That's, it means that the Spice Girls are 1 better than Deep Purple. Zig-a-zig-ah, what does it mean? A bit to the point of pragmatism. I mean, these sessions run on the familiar old Kolb learning cycle, so I've thrown you a concept, talked about it in musical terms, but there has to be some pragmatism at the end of what does it mean in business. Of course, you have constraints in music, you have these sort of scales within which you have to sort of navigate. Constraints are often in public sector organisations. Anyone from a public sector organisation here? They often say to me, well, we can't do anything because we've got too many government constraints and laws and regulations and what have you. Well, actually, as a scientist, constraints are good because inventors like constraints. You know, if someone says you can't do it, inventors like nothing more than that. And government people, I think, are really good at getting round constraints. In fact, they love nothing more than sort of getting through the wiring diagram of difficulties. So constraints are actually good for creativity, and funnily enough, they both start with a C. And of course, the 3M Post-it note is the old hat example of, you know, a glue that didn't stick, and someone said, well, what can we use it for? And there are plenty of other examples. So when people say to me, I want to be creative, I need to be free like an artist, I think there's another view that says have lots of obstacles around you to overcome. And people don't think about that as much in the world of creativity. And combining things in interesting ways is another way to be creative. Anyone from the world of banking here? Yeah, people used to put their hands up, but now they sort of, you apologise, don't you? I'm not on shares from First Direct, but anyone bank with First Direct? Absolutely marvellous bank. We've got fantastic stories to tell about First Direct. They are the only bank I've ever spotted that combined banking with relationship management in the same sentence. Other people have the same data, but First Direct do wonderful things when you phone them up. They know what you said last time. They do marvellous things like if you're drunk, they will get a taxi to take you home to Reading from London on a Friday night. Not that I've personally experienced that. And so on and so on. So convergence can be creative. And so these are the learning points that, in fact, you know, converging things rather than this sort of steam engine type sort of divergent creativity, which is often talked more about. Convergence can be massively useful for creativity, and the most obvious example, of course, is the iPod, which does many things that you'd have had to do in different ways up till now.
I got me the BILD blues.
Give a bit of support. We're going home. We ought to have a prize for you, but we haven't.
And for financial wisdom that you can trust, according to a letter in the Financial Times, that is, people should turn to the lyrics of rock songs. The FT correspondent sees Money by Pink Floyd as a warning of the subprime crisis, the Pet Shop Boys as incisive analysts of the credit boom. For example, in their song Opportunities, you've got the banks, I've got the shops, let's make lots of money.
14 minutes to 7, the headline this morning.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.